Jesse, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Now we're here today talking about your short film Straight and Narrow, which I have to say I really enjoyed, and I'm gonna come out of the gate with saying I'm gonna assume you're a fan of movies like the title just blanked. Have you ever seen Once the musical with Glenn Hansard?
No,
Or
I have not.
it's a movie about a struggling musician and his relationship, and it's done really beautifully. And then of
Yeah.
course the title, it's failing me, with Lady Gaga and
Star is Born.
yeah. It
Yeah.
feels in that vein, and I'm also a music video director and a huge fan of music. So, as a filmmaker, movies like this really speak to me about struggling artists and family dramas.
Right.
One question. So, in your own words, just explain to the audience what the film is about. We'll start there.
Yeah. So the film is about Sturgill Kane. He's a recovering alcoholic, and he's a musician who has a dream of making it big and being famous like everybody else. And he has this conversation with his ex, and like he's been on the straight path, on the straight and narrow, and she kind of gives him some bad news, and it kind of gets him off of the straight and narrow. So then we follow the journey with him and what happens in the film.
And one of my questions with it is, who is the artist singing the songs? Is that also Sturgill?
So in the beginning, when he's up on stage, that's him. That's my actor singing. We wrote the song specifically for the film. The guy that plays guitar next to him, he's the one that wrote it, and we went and practiced it because Brian, he really hasn't done anything like that before in the film. So that was one of my goals for him, was to play the guitar. So he actually went and took guitar lessons for it, and then he sang that song himself.
I saw on IMDb that there was a singing coach in the credits, so I assume that was also part of the process. So
that was the writer.
That's a pretty bold step then for an actor to learn to do that for a short film. He sounds very committed. I need to find more actors like that.
Yeah, he is. Like he said that that's the only reason that he started playing guitar was because of this role here, and we have plans to make this into a feature. So he's really going to be diving in and learning everything. And we're currently writing some songs for the feature now. So
yeah, I'm gonna recommend once again to watch Once, because it's a movie where the soundtrack of the film is integral to the plot of the film.
Yeah,
it's unlike it was made in, I want to say, that's 2007 or 8, shot for like $70,000, and it won an Oscar for best song.
Okay.
There's a song called Falling Slowly from it. So it's kind of, I'm a big fan of music driven films, back from like The Commitments to anything ever done on like a biopic about bands. I'm all in.
Yep.
So what I really like about it too is that you're able to use, the songs, he's playing these songs on stage, but then you're also able to use, versions of that song and the other music, it all as the score, but it all feels very organic and like it's coming from the character's heart, the same as when he's on stage. What was your process on figuring out or deciding the music path for the score in between the actual songs we see him singing?
So for Sturgill and Grace, I kind of wanted to have this theme, and that was the song that they played on stage. So when they go in the next scene and they're sitting outside by the airport, as we hear their theme song. But the other music that I put in, I kind of wanted to go for a folk country feeling to it. So I used music from Artlist, and a couple of the songs, Jake Schlegel, I think is the artist's name. So I used his because it kind of fit the tone and the mood that I was looking for.
I would never know that that's sort of like, stock music or music that you found out there. It all feels very organic to the film. So that's great music supervision and I think that's one thing a lot of audiences don't realize that aren't filmmakers, is that there is so much great sort of what they call catalog music and stock music out there, where rather than having to hire a composer to do something original, sometimes for a very affordable price, there's these websites where you can get these music elements and make them work. And it's a blessing to a lot of independent filmmakers, because when you're trying to keep budgets in reason or putting all of your own money into projects, those things go a long way. And like I said, I was normally I can sometimes you can tell stock music, but this film 100% I thought it was all original and organic
No.
to the story.
Yeah.
Did you write the film as well, or
I wrote the film, yes. So,
okay?
like you, I've been a big fan of music pictures.
Hmm.
So, I kind of drew a little bit of inspiration from Crazy Heart, and I think a film called
Oh
Wild
yeah.
Rose with Jesse Buckley. Um, so, I've always I love music just like anybody else. So, like with me being a filmmaker and me loving music, I kind of wanted to marry the two genres together, or forms. So, like, uh, I sat down and wrote it, and then A Star Is Born came out, and then everybody is always comparing it to A Star Is Born. And I was like, well, it's not really what I was going for, but I mean, I'll take it, you know. So, um, I just wrote the film. It was 11-page script, and then it turned out to be a 22-minute film.
Okay. Is that partly due to the when you're having music moments and music performance moments, in your script it might say they play a song on stage, and it's one line, but
Hmm.
that's going to be 2 or 3 minutes of time in the film.
Well, I'm a very descriptive writer. Like my
Okay.
action lines, I put a lot of text there and what I want my actors to do. But when I go in the edit, I like to let things breathe.
Hmm.
I don't like to do quick cuts, and I think that's why I kind of like expanded a little bit on the runtime.
What's your background? How did you get started? Because your IMDb has a long list of shorts and projects that you've done. So how did you get started?
So I grew up wanting to make movies, and I wrote screenplays, but never really made anything. And then I went to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh for a couple semesters, um, and it kind of got my start there. I made my first one in 2007. And then I had to move back home. And then I was like, I'm just going to do this myself. Uh, I'd write something and I'd go out with my friends and start shooting something. And then in 2013, I, uh, I was in the Pittsburgh area and they had this thing called the 48-hour film project. So I
Yep.
was doing that pretty much every year. And then 2018 is when I really started kicking off projects and kind of keeping busy throughout the year.
Those 48-hour film challenges are great. I'm too scared to enter one.
Yeah,
Fear of failure.
it's
Um,
stressful.
I've edited one for friends before, but never entered my own. But I think what you learn through doing that, it's a real good quick test of
Hmm.
like, do I want to be a filmmaker or not? Because
Yeah.
it's trial by fire. And anyone in the audience who doesn't know, 48-hour film challenges, you show up, they give you a couple rules like you must use this prop or this line of dialogue,
Mhm.
and then you have 48 hours to complete a film. You got to write it, shoot it, edit it, do all the post production, and turn it in, and then they screen it. It's usually attached to a film festival sometimes,
Mhm.
and there's great prize money. But it's an amazing motivator for a lot of filmmakers, especially people starting out, to just get off the couch and go make
Yeah.
something and give it a try. But
Yeah. A
yeah,
lot of
what?
people will go, I'm never doing this again because that the weekend was just crazy and they couldn't handle the stress. But
Yep.
that's what I liked about them is because it makes you think on your feet because anything and everything will happen. So
Hmm.
you might be going in on a Saturday to shoot and you're like, we got this. And then something happens whether like an actor, you built this story on one actor and the actor has an emergency and they can't make it. Then you got to hurry up and shuffle and think of how am I
Yep.
going to get this turned in. And so like I always told my team that we will have a film turned in on time, and that's what I have done. I've done probably at least 15, so kind of like 15 and 0. Knock
It's
on wood.
obviously the stakes are less dangerous, but it really is like what a military boot camp would be to real
Hmm.
war. Like it teaches you everything you need to know and how to handle all of the stress and just survive shooting that film.
Hmm.
Because every day on every music video I've ever done and every short film on every feature that I've ever made, there are always the same problems.
Hmm.
Sometimes you have a little bit more time to solve it. You have a little bit more resources and a bigger team around you. Sometimes, not always, but you just that's the number one thing I think in filmmaking is problem solving. Like a great director, a great producer, it's constantly problem solving to the point that the audience will never see any difference that was made. Because how many times on an indie film, exactly what you're talking about, an actor doesn't show up, someone can't make it,
Hmm.
you're running out of time, the sun is setting, and you don't have the budget like a studio film to come back the next day and shoot again at sunset.
Right.
You're just constantly adapting, but the trick is I think to never let the audience see that adapting. They see the movie and think that's exactly the way the filmmaker planned it to be.
Right, and that's the big challenge too, because all those problems could happen, and then you go on and you complete the day, and then you get the film. You go into the editing room to edit your film, and then you see the problem that you had that day of shooting, and you're like, oh no, and then I got to figure out how we're going to fix this and make it look smooth.
So with this being, a short that you're going to adapt into a feature, was that always the plan, or did it
Hmm.
start as a short? Oh, it's always been so. This is what they often refer to as a proof of concept, where
Right.
making the short, the intention is you can show investors, you can bring people onto the team saying, we already made essentially a segment of this film. Now we're looking for the help to get it easier than sometimes just having a script and a budget and hoping that people will believe in what you do.
Right. So, like I said, we're gearing up for the feature. I'm currently writing the script.
Hmm.
I have a few actors that I want to reach out to get in the feature. So there's an actor, musician, Ryan Bingham. I would love to get him on the project. So I'm kind of creating his character to the way that his personality is, and
Okay.
and like I said, we're writing music for it because I want to package this all up and say, look, here's the short. We've won some awards for it. Here's the feature script. What can you give us for the project? And let us go shoot it.
Will this be your first feature?
That's the plan. I'm
Yeah.
currently working on a project now, which is going to be about 45 minutes. So
Okay.
according to the Academy, 40 minutes is a feature. So
I think 70 is technically the definition for like
yeah,
distribution, but yeah.
right.
What does the Academy know? It's not like they have any important role in this film industry.
That's right.
Um, I think, yeah. So that's what's the challenge when scaling up from a short to a feature? What do you find to be the biggest challenges?
So for me, it is kind of um, expanding a little bit on the character stories. Like I have an overall vision of where I want my lead
Hmm.
character to go. So like my problem that because I've written shorts for so long, and like it's quick. You're getting 20 pages or so, and you're able just to kind of get in and get out. So in the feature for me is I have to build this world, build the conflicts with these characters, and kind of not make them stale in a sense. And so so I've added in a lot more characters to kind of help fill in the thing, give the Sturgill character a little bit more to play with, give him a little bit more conflict. So then at the end, like I have my end already plotted out, and I think it's going to be powerful. So if I just got to plot out my roadmap there, and I think I'll be good.
Nice. And then chase the money and get the movie
Yeah,
made, right? That's
yeah,
always the fun part. The business end of film that nobody in the audience ever sees is sometimes it's months, sometimes it's years to putting a movie together. And
yeah.
I laugh often that I find more and more like, remember there used to just be like one production company logo at the beginning of a
Hmm.
film, and now there's one, and then another,
Right.
and another, and sometimes there's like eight or nine, and you think, wow, it really, and all that really means for anybody out there that's an audience member not in the industry is each one of those companies or producers that uses that company name did something significant or contributed money or had the connection to get something made on that film, and it took all of those entities to get the one project off the ground. Because sometimes you see executive producer lists that are,
Hmm.
it feels like the credits are longer than the movie sometimes because they never end.
Right.
But it's a real dance. So in terms of films, what do you how many short films have you made now? Because that list was extensive when I looked.
I think it's around 20.
Wow. So you have essentially made a few feature films in terms of length and the amount of time you spent on set,
Right.
which I think is there's no wrong or right way to run your film career, but I find a lot of people make one short film and then jump. I'm going to go make a feature next. I'm like,
Hmm.
maybe best to kind of keep cutting your teeth a little bit. So you're well seasoned and ready to make the jump. You've had all
Yeah.
your production problems. What do you have any other shorts coming up for release? Like, will we see more of your work on Reveal in the future? Do you think?
Yeah. So I would love to. We're finishing up denovating chapter 2. We're looking to do kind of a theater premiere in April for that, and then we might do a little bit of a festival run with it. But I'm hoping to get that up on Reveal and also chapter 1 because it kind of sets up chapter 2. So put both of those up there.
Would that essentially be like a web series, or is each film a self-contained story?
It's a self-contained story. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So the
then,
first chapter was like 14 minutes, and then chapter two, it says 45, and then we have plans for chapter three, which is going to be a little bit bigger than that.
okay. So when you're writing this, you're thinking about the music, how much attention are you putting into coming up with the lyrics for the songs to make sure that the lyrics are matching up thematically with what you're trying to do with the story?
So I'm kind of relying on my buddy to do that, the one that wrote the song for the short. I tell him, like, for this one scene, I want a kind of like a country rock song, and then I know for the end, I kind of want to have a kind of slower paced song for my character, because it's going to be his swan song at the end of the film, where he kind of doesn't get what he's supposed to, or what he's been chasing after, and it's just kind of like this is the last time that he's going to be playing on stage, so it's going to be a little bit peeled back a little bit on that one.
Okay. And when you do the feature, how many songs do you think you'll have to have for the movie?
I'm hoping to get like 5 or 10, because I would like to do an original soundtrack and then kind of
Yeah,
release
yeah.
that with the film.
I've always done the soundtracks for my film. It's mostly as a music video director, I've been fortunate to have access to a lot of bands and artists that I've worked with
Hmm.
to get their music in my film. So we've always put out a soundtrack, even if it's just Spotify and digitally. It's a lot of
Yeah.
fun to kind of. I was a huge fan of growing up and always buying the soundtrack for
Hmm.
movies, and that's where I discovered some of my favorite bands, because you'd buy the soundtrack for like that one single or the band,
Right.
but then there were these 11 other songs that you were like, oh yeah, I remember that scene, but then you fall in love with all these bands.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think that's great.
The one album that I kind of fell in love with and played nonstop was the Armageddon soundtrack.
Yep.
When that came out, I
Yep.
was like, yeah, the movie. I enjoyed the movie, and I think that's what kind of got me into filmmaking, was seeing like the big scale of doing things. I wanted to know what it was. So then when I got
Yeah.
the soundtrack, that's all I listened to. I was in the CD player nonstop.
I had the soundtrack and the score for that.
Hmm.
I'm trying to remember the composer's name, but there's a Canadian band on there. They had a song called Starseed, Our Lady Peace,
Yeah.
and that song was already 5 or 6 years old in Canada at the time, but that's what helped break them into the United
Hmm.
States, was being on that soundtrack. And the singer of Our Lady Peace's wife is Chantal Kreviazek, who does the cover of Leaving on a Jet Plane on the Armageddon
Hmm.
soundtrack. So
Yeah.
I know that soundtrack very well, and of course the Aerosmith song that
Right.
it was like number one on the radio for months and months, right?
Yeah. That's right.
Awesome. Well, we like to keep things short and sweet around here, but thank you for joining us today. Everybody out there, Reveeld.net. It's a wonderful streaming platform, tons of independent films, documentaries, short films. It's 100% free. You sign up for an account like you would any other streaming service, but you're not going to be asked for a credit card. You don't have to pay a fee. You just get to watch tons of great films like Straight and Narrow, which is one of the best films that I've found on the platform. And Jesse, thanks for making it. Thanks for having it on Reveal. And thanks for taking the time today to talk a little bit about it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.